the cities of Recife and Olinda on Brazil's beautiful northeast coast. But beneath the beauty, there is something much more sinister. Brazil, famous for its sand, sun and samba, is also infamous for its social inequality. This inequality leaves many living in very precarious conditions. This leaves thousands of children at risk of gang violence, sexual abuse, exploitation and trafficking.
Minha mãe me espancou desde os 4 anos. Pra me espancar, tentou me afogar dentro de uma caixa d'água. Eu fui estuprada pelo marido da minha avó.
It was because of these children that God led us to begin Revive. But over the last few years, God has begun to mature our vision. He says that He places the lonely and abandoned in families, not into care homes.
Well, good morning, everybody. We will be speaking a little bit more about the things that you've heard in the video. But before we continue, we'll better do the reading. So the reading today is from Mark chapter 4, beginning at verse 35, and we'll go through to Mark 5, verse 20. So make yourself a cup of tea while I read us this. Mark 4:35 says this. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was, in the boat. There was also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out to the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from his distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. Let's say a quick prayer before we begin. Father, we thank you for today. We just pray, Lord, that you will open our hearts to your word and your word to our hearts, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to be here. For those of you who have no idea who I am, my name is Andy Roberts. I feel at home at YCC because this is actually the church of my late grandparents, Margaret and Emmeline. They were part of the church from before it was YCC. When I was growing up, I was a part of the camps I used to do out of Whittoff. It's great to see Si, who is one of the leaders there, and Camp King Brian is watching at home. I've seen him on the chat already, and I will never forget Brian jumping around in his crown, in his shorts. It's one of those things I've had to speak a lot to my therapist about. And it's great to see Tracy as well. Tracy was one of my leaders from back when I was a teenager in Sold Out. Tracy was very, very young as well at the time, so it's not that bad. Anyway. It's lovely to be here, unfortunately, my family couldn't be here with me, but hopefully, I think, as if by magic, there will be a picture of them on the screen now. I'm married to a girl called Rosie, and we have two young girls, Sophia and Julia. For those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you might have seen Julia dancing in a church at St. Mike in York last week, and that was really, really fun. And for the past 12 years, we have lived in the northeast of Brazil, where we work for the Church Mission Society, working with vulnerable children, and we set up Revive, and you've just seen a little video about Revive. But today, we're going to think a little bit about mission. And to help us think a little bit about mission, we're going to think about the story we've just heard and this idea of crossing the lake. And Jesus and his disciples, they crossed the lake, and we're going to think about these lakes that we can cross. And they're not just the geographical lakes, it's not oceans, but think about those areas on the fringes of church where the church still hasn't yet been able to reach. Those people, what are the lakes that need to be crossed? They might be social, they might be economic lakes. I'm going to think a little bit about that. And I think this is a really, really important story. It's very significant, this story about crossing the lake, because as the Bible said, the people who lived on the far side of the lake, they were the Gentiles. They were the non-Jewish people. And at that time, if you remember, the Jews, they thought that the Messiah's mission was only for the Jewish nation, and that the Gentiles, they were beyond salvation. And I think looking around this room just now, and perhaps you guys at home, I think this is very significant to us, because I think every single one of us here today are Gentiles. We're all Gentiles. And it's very interesting how Jesus, very early on in his mission, he wanted to show the disciples and everybody else that actually the Gentiles were very much part of his mission. And that's very significant to us. And so they go off and they have some fun on the lake before they get there, and they get to the other side. And if you put yourselves in the shoes of those disciples, these young Jewish men, they find themselves in a very, very strange place. They already think that the Gentiles are a bit strange. They don't really like the culture. And then suddenly they see these open tombs. And open tombs to the Jews are a big no-no. They do not like to see dead bodies. They think it's all impure. And then suddenly, to make things worse, out of these tombs comes a demon-possessed man with an impure spirit. And then there's pigs as well, and they don't like pigs. And they find themselves in a strange place with strange people, with strange animals. And they're probably thinking to themselves, Jesus, why on earth did you bring us here? And I'm pretty sure that is a question that many a missionary has asked over the years of Jesus when they find themselves in strange places. But of course, Jesus was there with a purpose. And the purpose was to heal that demon-possessed man, to transform his life. And he actually commissions this man to be a local missionary. And this is perhaps the first example we have in the Bible of a Gentile missionary, and Jesus commissions him to speak to his own people about everything that had happened to him. Because if you remember, the rest of the people wanted Jesus and his disciples out of there. They didn't want them anymore in their region. And as they were getting back into the boat, the man, he begged Jesus to go with him. And Jesus said, no, you need to stay here and tell your own people everything that you have seen. And this is a great example to us, as we're involved in cross-cultural mission, about finding the local people to speak to their local people as well. And that mission must have worked. That demon-possessed man, his mission worked, because later on in the gospel, when Jesus and the disciples return to that side of the lake, they're welcomed completely differently. There's hundreds of people there wanting to hear about what Jesus has to say, and that's when he does the feeding of the 5,000. And so that man's mission worked very well. So today we're going to think a little bit about crossing the lake, and we're going to tell some stories from Brazil, and hopefully we'll have some things that can challenge us as well from here we are. So I'd like to suggest that crossing the lake, it is a calling, it's transformational, it's scary, and it's pioneering. And so we're going to look at each of those in turn with a few stories from Brazil. So the first one is crossing the lake. It is a calling. And very early on in that story, Jesus calls his disciples to the far side of the lake. And every single one of us have been called. The Bible's very, very clear that God has given us all unique gifts and skills to get involved in his mission. So we've all been called. John Taylor was an old head of the Church Mission Society, and he described Jesus as the great disturber. Jesus is the great disturber. Now, he disturbed my life, and I think Tracy might even remember this from back in the old youth group days. We had a talk from the Toy Box charity who did work in Guatemala, and that for the very first time, God started to stir something up inside of me about street kids. And I went to Brazil in a gap year, and you just had the photo of these young girls living on the streets, because at the time we'd been involved working with the boys, and then we came across lots of girls as well in the streets. And Jesus, he completely messed up my life. He did a holy mess of my life and disturbed it so much through the lives of these girls, because these girls, they were also involved with sexual exploitation. And we met these three sisters. They were very young. They were 8, 10, and 12 at the time. And these three sisters, they were living with their mum in a nice area of town. And every single night, their mum would sell her daughters for sex every single evening. And whoever wanted to abuse her daughters would go to their house and abuse them. And the eldest daughter, she told us how a few weeks previously, she'd been kidnapped by one of these guys who had been abusing her, and she was kept tied up in his bedroom for 2 weeks. And you don't even want to think of the kind of stuff that she must have gone through during those 2 weeks. And she told us how she'd managed to escape, and she escaped back home. Now, in the Hollywood movies, that's the happy ending of the story, because home is a place of safety. But she actually escaped back to a reality where her own mum continued to pimp her every single evening. And like I said, at the time, we were working with the boys, and we had a boys' home for them, and we wanted to do something to help these girls. And it was then that we realized that in the city of Olinda, there were many homes for boys, but there were none for girls. And we actually couldn't do anything to help these three sisters. Now, I grew up with the Popeye cartoon. I'm a boy of the 80s, and if you remember Popeye, every single week, he would get more and more frustrated because he couldn't do anything to save his girlfriend, Olive Oyl. And he'd get more and more frustrated until he cracked open his spinach and became really strong and got into action. And that is the Popeye moment. I had my Popeye moment when I found out that there was no homes for girls in the city, and we just had to do something about it. And God said, you need to do something about this. I wonder if you guys have had your Popeye moment yet. So this is what happened. We started up Revive, and Revive in 2014, we opened up the first house for girls in the city of Olinda. And since then, we've received over 70 kids, girls have come through our doors. All of them have come from very broken families, suffered abuse at the hands of their families, and that's why they've had to leave their families and come and live in our home. And yes, if we come back to me from that, and so we've received all those girls over the years, and we've got a great team, and some of them are actually watching today, and we try and restore their lives and renew their hope for the future. But those three sisters we never found again. So those three sisters who had set us on the trajectory to open up Revive, we never found again. But crossing the lake, it is a calling. So I wonder whether you've had your Popeye moment, one of the things that God is stirring up inside of you as you look around your community. Does the great disturber need to come and give you a bit of a shake, a bit of a disturbance? Just like Jesus was challenging the disciples' misconception about mission, I wonder whether you need to be challenged about what mission is and how to get involved. And so perhaps the great disturber needs to do a bit of disturbing in our lives today. So first of all, crossing the lake, it is a calling. And then secondly, if we just have the slide back up, that's it. Crossing the lake, it's also transformational. Because once you've followed Jesus in his call, transformation follows. And that's what we saw with the demon-possessed man. God completely transformed his life and commissioned him to his work. Now, Revive's mission is one of transformation. And if you can see on this photo, the girl on the left jumping, her name is Milena. And I think there's another photo I can show you now. There you go. These are the first 3 girls to ever arrive at Revive. And Milena's in the middle. And Milena, she came to us when she was 15. She came from a broken home. And she spent just under a year living with us at Revive until she went back home. And then she ended up moving away down to Rio de Janeiro, which is about a 3-hour flight away from where we are in the northeast. And she continued her life. And we hadn't seen her again. But then just last year, I was down in Rio, I was preaching in a church, and Milena, she found out that I was at the church, and she came to see me. And after 6 years, I finally saw her again. And she came up to me after the service, and she said, "Andy, Revive saved my life back then. If it wasn't for Revive, I don't know what would have happened." And she told me how now she's studying to be a dentist, and she's the manager of a local restaurant. And so it's amazing to see how God is able to transform lives if we let him. Another photo for you guys. This is a photo again from 2015. Let me just tell you a quick story about 2 sisters. One is Joycey, who is the second from the left in the black t-shirt, and her sister Anna is on the far right in the red t-shirt. They came to Revive again from a very broken home, and they actually spent over 4 years living with us at Revive. But they're now back at Revive, but this time not as vulnerable, abused children. They're actually employees of Revive. Joyce on the left, she's one of the staff members for the new house, and Anna is one of the office assistants. And so it's amazing to see how God is able to restore lives. And just like that demon-possessed man who was commissioned to tell of Jesus to his own people, Joyce and Anna have something that none of our other staff members have, because they know exactly what it's like to be a girl at Revive. And they can tell the current girls, we know exactly what it is that you guys are going through, but look at what God can do if you let him. So God transforms lives. And actually this mission of restoring lives and renewing hope, that's what the church's mission is. We're all called to restore lives and renew hope where we are. And this is the first time I'm actually standing in Cornerstone, and Si was telling me about all the wonderful plans that you guys have for this place of being a beacon in the community. And so I wonder what it is that we can do to restore lives and renew hope where we are, restoring those relationships. So crossing the lake, it is a calling. It's transformational, and it is also pretty scary. Jesus and the disciples, they had some fun on the way over in the lake. And quite often in ministry, I feel like this Canadian woman who's stranded in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, Si might have a little bit of experience about this when he sailed over the Atlantic. But this Canadian woman, she's trying to become the first woman to single-handedly row across the Atlantic Ocean. It's going to take her 4 months, and she was going to set off from the Canary Islands and should get to Canada. And 2 months into her voyage, so right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, she's hit by a massive storm. A massive storm comes through, and she is left with next to nothing. She loses her anchors, she loses her radio stuff, she loses her food, and the only thing that she can do is to send out a mayday call. And quite often in ministry in Brazil and in life, I find myself just sending out Mayday prayers quite often. It's sometimes pretty scary, the work that we do. We've just had a lot of death threats at the staff from things. So things are pretty shaky sometimes in Brazil. And I feel like this Canadian woman just sending out Mayday prayers. But for that Canadian woman, I am pretty sure that she had no idea which vessel would respond to her Mayday call that day. Because the vessel that responded to her Mayday call just happened to be the Queen Mary II cruise liner. Now, the Queen Mary 2 cruise liner, as you guys know, is one of the most luxurious cruise liners in the world, and they were on their cruise from Southampton to New York, and they pick up her distress signal, and they change course. And you can imagine this Canadian woman looking at the horizon and seeing a tiny speck appearing, and then getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then she realizes, goodness me, it's the Queen Mary 2. And they do a few circles of her vessel to calm the waters, and then, because of the Queen Mary 2, she gets everything she needs. She gets like the top of the range sea anchor, she gets new GPS equipment, she gets food, and then because it's the Queen Mary 2, she gets everything that she doesn't need. She gets like luxury stuff. She gets teas and chocolates and pillows and all of these things that she hasn't had for months. And then the captain comes on the tannoy and announces to all the passengers what this lady's trying to accomplish. And they line the decks and they give her these 3 cheers and they cheer her on, and then they sail off into the distance. And she's again left in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But what a boost that must have been to that Canadian woman. And so perhaps you just need to hear today that, you know, in the middle of the storms, we're in the middle of one now with COVID, and when we're in Brazil with all the ministry, sometimes we need to remember that we have a Queen Mary 2 size God who's ready and willing just to come and to help us, and even better than that, because actually, you know, Jesus is on the boat with us as well, present with us in those storms. So crossing the lake, it is a calling, it's transformational, it's scary, and then finally, it is also pioneering. Jesus was expanding those disciples' horizons about what mission was and what his mission was. And for us, years ago, he told us to start up a girls' home, and we've done it. And then, right, well, that's it. We finished. Mission over, right, God? That's done. But no, because Jesus always wants us to go further. He's always compelling us onwards in mission, propelling us forwards. And so this photo here is of the new house that Revive has just opened. This one's for babies and for young children, and that will be opening very soon. But for the last few years, God has been challenging us with this question: what is it that a child really needs? And obviously what a child really needs is a family. And we've just had in that video the verse from Psalm 68, here it is again, that says this: "A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. He places the lonely into families, not into care homes." And so what we do is we take lonely and abandoned children and we put them into care homes, but God wants us to put them into families. And obviously at Revive, we do eventually put the kids back into families. That's what we want to do, either through family reintegration or through adoption. But that can take time. As you've seen for Joyce and Ania, it took over 4 years for that to happen. And so in the meantime, they don't have a family. And sometimes that can be pretty bad for the kids. And we had one girl, a young girl who had just been adopted, and she'd spent a few months, nearly a year at Revive. And on her first night with her new adoptive family, she asked her adopted mum when she was going to clock off her shift. Because at Revive, we have shifts. And she just got used to having some people who'd come to look after during the day, and then some more who'd come at night, and then some more the next day. And she thought that was what a family was like. She thought that mums worked in shifts. And she was expecting this adoptive mum to suddenly leave and go away and somebody else come in. And this adoptive mum said, "No, I'm your mum forever. I'm never going to leave you." And so once again, Revive is going to be a pioneer, and we're going to pioneer the first ever fostering service in the city of Olinda. And for us, fostering is so normal. We have it all the time. But where we live in Olinda, it's technically illegal. And so over the past year or so, we've been working with the local government. This is the mayor and his team, and I was talking about our vision for fostering, and they loved it. And over the past year or so, we've been helping them draw up the legal framework that we need for the service. And also, we've been engaging with the local churches about fostering and adoption, because actually, adoption and fostering are at the heart of our faith. All of us here have been adopted into God's family. And so adoption and fostering are central to our faith. And we've been engaging with them to see if any families would step up and put Psalm 68 into action and put children into families. Because wouldn't it be amazing if over the next year or so, all of the homes in Recife and Olinda where we live, all of the children's homes could close their doors? Not because there aren't any more kids being abused and needing to be brought into care. That's not going to happen this side of heaven. We will always have abused children with us. But wouldn't it be amazing if the homes closed their doors because families from the churches were opening their doors to have these children into foster families rather than into institutions? Because actually what a child really needs is not a safe house, it's a safe home. It's not an institution, it's a family. And wouldn't that be amazing? And wouldn't that be an amazing testament for the local church to show society of what the church can do to transform society? That all of these care homes have closed because families are stepping up and putting Psalm 68 into action. So Crossing the Lake is pioneering. So I wonder what it is that we here in York need to pioneer to reach other people, to reach new people for him. Again, John Taylor said that mission is an adventure of the imagination. Sai was just talking about people being creative, thinking of new ways of how we can reach new people. Let your creativity run free. Join this adventure of what mission is, because it's exciting. It really is. So Crossing the Lake, it is a calling, and we've all been called. It is transformation, it is scary, and it's pioneering. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for how you have called each and every one of us into your mission. Disturb our lives, Father, if we become too comfy. Shake us, Lord. Give us those Popeye moments. Stir up those things that we can see in our society and get us into action. We thank you for your mission of transformation. We thank you that you are transforming us to be more like you. Help us as well to be agents of transformation to those around us. We thank you that you're with us in the scary times. And we just pray, Lord, that you will compel us onwards, Lord, in our mission. Show us those new ways. Let us be pioneers for you, Father, to creatively and imaginatively reach more people for your love, we pray. In Jesus' name.